And are we really believing that all the people blasting FDT by YG in the streets went out to vote for Joe Biden? Do you really believe that? You really think a guy in Oakland, California, driving his car down the street with the doors open, drinking in the passenger seat of a car, went to go vote to cast a vote for Joe Biden? You really believe that? I'm not buying.
All of a sudden, these races start getting tighter and tighter overnight, and I think I said the other day, Trump's up by like 4,000 in Georgia. By the morning, he will no longer have it, and that's exactly what happened. And then little did I know he would no longer have Pennsylvania in the morning.
Because when you're walking around New York, you have to brush off a bum every 10 feet. So I just kind of like, no, not today.
So I spat on her. Get away from me.
Celebrating, pouring champagne. Are we really believing that all the people blasting FDT by YG in the streets went out to vote for Joe Biden? Do you really believe that? You really think a guy in Oakland, California, driving his car down the street with the doors open, drinking in the passenger seat of a car, went to go vote to cast a vote for Joe Biden? You really believe that? I'm not buying.
I'm not buying that. Like, considering Trump went up in every category besides white men, I guess, the whites, natives, even Muslims outvoted Jews for Trump, Black, Hispanic, Asian, all increased, and he gets like 70 million votes. Maybe they cheated too, I don't know. But like Joe Biden, and then Trump's winning by all these. He's winning it by all these large margins. Georgia was like South Carolina was like 70,000. Georgia was like 40, and then Pennsylvania was like, and then Michigan, and then overnight. Let's pause the counting, guy. Let's recollect ourselves. Let's gather our thoughts, and then by the morning, it looks like it just so happens there was actually just the exact right amount by a couple thousand to defeat Trump in all these races. Unfortunately, you guys, that's just how it goes. Anybody who's ever watched elections, like those all would have been called, all those states, because nobody ever comes back from a lead like that when there's 15% left in Georgia and 10% left in South Carolina, and all of a sudden they just all come back, every single one of them. It makes no sense.
Yes. And I was actually, of course, I was in Wisconsin, and now granted, Madison, Wisconsin is absolutely awful, but the little town that I was stuck in, I mean, it was, granted, it's a town with a small population. I would have to look into the actual population, but I mean, everybody was going about their life as normal. Nothing was boarded up. And we're talking about just under an hour, about 55 minutes away from Madison, Wisconsin. Nobody's wearing a mask. Nothing's boarded up. Everything's open. And I actually went to sleep in that little town feeling really quite confident. I'm like, oh man, this is looking good. Like, and I didn't even go to bed until I actually fell asleep fairly early because I was just exhausted from a long day of, driving and car shenanigans. So I fell asleep maybe around like 9, but I woke up at like 1 or 2, and Trump was still up big time. Yeah. And then I went to bed at like 4, sleeping like a baby, like basically sleeping with this hat on, like, yeah, it's going to be perfect, right? And then I get up and all of a sudden Trump lost Wisconsin. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second, this doesn't add up. And then you go back, 6 or 8 weeks, a couple months ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but you have Pelosi, more specifically, blatantly saying, well, talking about this red mirage, and you're gonna think that Donald. It's like it's so obvious. It's so obvious. Like, well, you're going to think that Trump won, but when it's all said and done, the mail-in votes are going to, and it's like, and that, think about this, right? The way that they put it out there so blatantly, like, well, yeah, you're going to think Donald Trump won, but when all the votes are counted, it's going to be obvious that he didn't. It's very similar to the way that they played the virus, right? It's like, well, the virus is going to kill you. The virus is going to kill you. But now that the election's over, we're partying in the streets. You got Schumer out there taking his mask off. It's like you couldn't even give it. Okay, when was it? It was Tuesday. So it hasn't even been a week. And they're already, oh, yeah, like all the mail-in ballots came for Biden. Oh, the virus. Even there was that article floating around a day or two before Election Day saying it's safe to vote even if you have COVID-19. And that was them prepping it up like, yeah, we could tell this is coming to a close. And they knew. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. That's why Joe Biden didn't campaign, because it wouldn't matter.
Well, they still said they want to I think they said today that they want to put together some sort of panel to finally defeat the virus. And they still want a national mask mandate. If that happens, it's just never coming off, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly.
And how do you enforce that?
I don't know. I do not know. You got guys like, oh man, my best friend in the world, Andrew Cuomo, who for months was like, just come on, just wear them. He still tweets every day. Full disclosure, I don't actually use Twitter, but he screenshots his tweets and posts them to Instagram every single day. It's the same thing. He uses the same, template and just changed the numbers a little bit. And I have so many questions about that because you tweak these numbers a little bit and you just expect people to believe it. Like, do you really think like, oh, well, today there was 4,352 positive cases and that's 1.2% of the total. It's like, dude, you've been lying to us for months. This is why it triggers me so much is because I saw it. I mean, I guess that's probably how we met, I guess, is like watching that testing facility and having these people tell me that my job is not safe to go to.
Yeah.
And they put these testing facilities in the hood, in the black and brown community, and then tell you need an appointment, and then tell you need a car. So why did you put it in Flatbush, Brooklyn to help the people of Flatbush and then tell them you need a car? And then have the people working at the site. I caught this, obviously this was months ago. I don't want to get too far off track, but the guy who pulls up and says he wants to get a test on a moped, on like a little scooter, and they tell him we can't do it on that. You got to have a car, and they literally suggest that he takes an Uber.
My guess is that I'm pretty sure he said that they were going to have this grand plan because COVID affects black and brown people more. That he was just like, we're helping black people. Yeah. And then they also probably didn't want the numbers to go up because they were already gigantic. So they're like, oh, well, we can't really take people. You need to be in a car. More important question though.
The wind. Yeah. The wind. The very first day they said it was too windy. And then if you recall, they told me, and the lady, this was about halfway through. So if it opened in the beginning of April and it closed in June, I'd say about halfway through when it was a nice little New York summer storm where it was like 75 and rainy. And I go there because they made the mistake of putting it far too close to my apartment. I go there and the lady admits that they're not testing people because of a thunderstorm. And that's when you realize that they are more afraid of being struck by lightning than helping people with the virus.
But why would wind prevent them from testing people? It's like, don't they put something in the back of your throat? Like it's
that's a good great question,
I guess.
That's a great question.
Now your imitation of Cuomo there had a New York accent. How come you don't have one?
Because I'm not actually from New York, right? So,
okay.
Yeah. So I lived in New York for not that long. In the grand scheme, right? So about 5 years. And I'm thankful for my time in New York because obviously I met a lot of people. I did have a good job. I was able to, survive living in New York on one job. So it was nice. And I was able to hang on to some of I just put far too much money into that stupid car. That's absolutely infuriating.
Transition that into your story there. So we both went to Trump rallies, or I got to mine.
And I will say I was inspired by hearing that you were going. One of my friends, actually my friend George, who helped me drive to South Dakota from Brooklyn, he got back to New York and then drove to the rally in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Obviously, Fog City Midge has been going to all of them. A lot of my Insta friends have been sending me footage from Arizona rallies and all sorts of stuff, and it was just winding down. And I'm like, dude, I have, for better or for worse, have a little bit of time on my hands. It's not like I had to go to work that day. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. It's a 6-hour drive. I used to drive from San Francisco to LA all the time. I could basically do this.
How far it is, really?
Yeah,
I didn't realize they were that far away from each other.
Yeah, a lot of people in New York don't know even, too, by the way. So people in New York, they were like, well, you could go to LA. I'm like, dude, it's literally like a 6 or 7 hour drive from San Francisco to LA. It's not something you do every day, but that's what they think. The people in New York think, oh, well, it's like, you hop on a 6 train from Brooklyn to the Bronx and it's like an hour on the train. It's not like that.
Well, people from Toronto don't want to leave Toronto. Where I live, which is like 30 minutes outside of Toronto, people are just like, oh, I never go out there. Like, you never go 30 minutes outside. I get there's the sense that, like, why would you? But also it's like they act like it's some foreign land. That's pretty ridiculous sometimes.
That's how it is. That's how it is in San Francisco. People that live in San Francisco proper, they're like, well, I don't go to Oakland. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's 25 minutes across the bridge, but no, I'm not going. It's very similar. That's what it sounds like, at least.
So you're going to the one in Madison, Wisconsin?
So, okay. So I got this right now. I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is about between 6 and 7 hours from Kenosha, Wisconsin.
I only know Kenosha because, well, obviously because of that. But I was going to say because of that 70s show.
Oh, I see. I didn't even know about that 70s show, but Kenosha.
Wow, unbelievable.
And to be honest with you, to be 100% honest with you, I don't even remember. It wasn't because George Floyd was in Minneapolis. Kenosha was Jacob Blake. What? Why did they burn down? I mean, I know it's like a war-torn city.
Solidarity, I think, is why.
but it was Jacob Blake, or I forget who I can't even keep it straight anymore. These things seem to just happen all the time. But so anyways, I'm leaving my place in Sioux Falls to go to Kenosha to check out this rally. I get up because the rally starts at 6 p.m. But I'm going to lose an hour between my place and Kenosha. I'm going to lose 1 hour. They're 1 hour ahead. So I get up super early, 5:30 in the morning. It's still dark. And plenty of time, I wasn't going to drive 100. I don't have the need for speed or anything like that. I just wanted to do it real calm, get out, get myself a cup of coffee and, stop 3 hours in for, take a leak, another cup of coffee, maybe a little burger, and then finish the rest of it. Of course, that's not how it went down. And so I get about 4.5 hours in. So I'm more than halfway there. When the car the transmission, it's so easy for me to say it's a transmission now because I know that's what it was. But at the time, I'm definitely not a car expert, so I didn't know what it was. But if I was...
How old's your car?
It's a 2014.
And it just died on you.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's a 2014 that I bought in 2015. So it was 1 year old when I bought it. But it spent most of the time at my parents' house because I was in New York and I didn't have it. So it was still, my car was living in California, and, I can't say, I'm not going to place blame on anyone because it's certainly my car, but, my parents I asked them for this whole time that I was in New York and it was still in California. I'm like, just drive it around the block once a week, take it to the grocery store, a little bit, just keep it, just make sure that it doesn't just mold over into nothing, So
was that why it broke down, because it was underused?
I don't believe that's no, that's not why. I don't believe that's why, because after doing a little bit of research, I found out that between 2013 and 2017, almost every single Nissan model except for the SUV was actually recalled because of something called it's a CVT or CTV, convertible variable transmission or something like that. CVT, I think, is what they call it.
We try to
so
look
they,
that up.
a handful of those have been recalled. Mine actually falls right into that. They actually
Continuously variable transmission.
Yes, that's the one. Continuously variable transmission. And then you can research the CEO of Nissan who escaped the Japanese prison and all sorts of
nice.
weird.
They had like a big lawsuit over it.
Yeah.
2012 to 2018, several models of Nissan vehicles received the transmission, including Sentra, Versa, Versa Note, a bunch of other ones. Nice.
Yeah. So obviously, had I known that in 2015, so yeah, I mean, look, you can't win them all. It's basically turns out that I got sold a lemon, and had I been driving, had I never moved to New York and I was driving the car every day in California, it would have happened a lot quicker, right? It probably would have happened a year in rather than 4 years going by and then it happening in the middle of Wisconsin. But Wisconsin, for the record, where I got stranded, which was still about 2 hours away from Kenosha, was really nice. And that was in my head. I'm thinking this is what Wisconsin is all like. That also is not true because this was a quaint little town. There's a big lake. I forget the name of the town was called Wisconsin Dells though, but there's like a nice little lake and you can go on these boat trips and play mini golf and there's indoor water parks and all sorts of stuff. And,
nice.
And like I said, nobody was worried about the mask. Nobody approached me about a mask. There was very few signs even, but if you go just 1 hour into the big city of Madison, it is insane. Everything at Madison, Wisconsin, everything was boarded up in the hip area, kind of like I would compare it to like Soho in New York, like downtown, City Hall, or not City Hall, I should actually say the state capitol. I mean, imagine the state capitol of Wisconsin is boarded up because they think that Donald Trump is going to win the election. Right? So then when he doesn't win, the boards, I mean, they'd be smart to leave it because anybody with half a brain knows that the AP is not the final deciding factor of the presidency.
Oh, it's so stupid.
No, it's absolute insanity. But so I never made it to Kenosha, but finding out that Madison, and I was getting messages from some of my Insta friends, and they were saying like, wow, like, because before I went to the Stop the Steal rally, I was noticing these giant American flags in Madison. I mean, just huge, like RV park style, like flags bigger than my, just is the size of my living room, basically, on the side of the road. And people were sending me messages saying like, wow, that's weird for Madison because they're a pretty hard left city, which I didn't know. I just didn't. I mean, my knowledge of Wisconsin was the Green Bay Packers. Like I didn't. Yeah. I had no idea what to think about Wisconsin. So, of course, the car breaks down on Monday. I spend I just got back yesterday? No, Friday night. I got back Friday night, but the whole thing was a complete mess, and it's just a little peculiar because even in Madison, I saw huge Trump signs. I'm talking like billboards for Trump, and like there was some Biden stuff out there. But it was just a little peculiar that he had such a huge lead on Tuesday night. And then when I woke up on Wednesday morning, it had all evaporated almost just like clockwork, like Pelosi said it would. And the red mirage and everybody on the hard left. So I never made it to the rally. I'm super jealous though you made it. I wish I could have got a new hat or something, but it is what it is,
Well, they released some schedule the weekend before or the Friday before. And it was like the whatever 5 cities he did that day. And I was like, this is going to be the last chance I ever get to go to a Trump rally. Because I would have gone to one in like Buffalo or something because that's really close to the border. That just didn't happen, probably because of coronavirus. So we just decided to go, me and the camera guy / producer, Efron. And it was like 7 hours, I think, 7 or 6. And he drives slow. He's got some sort of, he's Dominican. So he's got some sort of weather-based fears of driving. Like this, it was snowing pretty bad on the highway in Michigan. But like I still would have went faster. Like if you got a new enough car, you can trust it. But he had some nationality-based fears, I'll call it. So we ended up getting into this Traverse City at like 1 a.m. And it turns out that this is like and I always forget the name. What's the beach in South Carolina that everybody goes to?
Is it Myrtle Beach?
Yeah, Myrtle Beach. That town is basically like that. Now, I've never been to Myrtle Beach, but so you go drive into this town, which is like, I don't know if it was like 15,000 or 20,000 people. And it's just filled with these super nice looking small hotels. Just had to be at least 24 of them. And it dawned on me that this must be a party city in the summertime. It's on the lake. It's small. Yep. So that's how it looked. So it was a really nice city. We stayed at this Airbnb. Somebody parked in our spot. And I'm trying to find the parking spots on the ground. And some guy just out there smoking weed is like, yo, are you taking pictures of my license plate, bro? I'm just trying to see. I'm not looking to get stabbed. I'm just trying to see the parking spot numbers. And not this opposite of a shout out to the Airbnb that we stayed at because they had it on sale for $76. I'm guessing because of COVID. And then they had like $150 cleaning fee. Like, who are you fucking kidding with this?
Dude,
like that.
I lived through the whole, because when I was stranded in Wisconsin, I'm looking at hotels, I'm looking at Airbnbs, and it's like they get you in there, they're like $35 a night, and it's like cleaning fee $120, like security fee. Yeah, it's crazy.
And so we ended up being there from 1 a.m. to 11 a.m. the next day because they wouldn't let us stay longer. They claimed they had somebody coming in right after, so probably somebody who was at the rally. We get up. We go to a bagel place, eat bagels, and then we see this parking lot filled with all these vendors and stuff. So they had like a bunch of vendors, and it was so windy and so cold. And it was where people were getting on the bus to go to the rally. So they drive to this parking lot, park, get on a bus, and be bussed over to the rally at the airport, which is like 30 seconds away. But obviously, we don't want to go in with them, with all these people, because we want to get super cool press privileges. So we go to the airport. We're driving around. We don't know where to go. So all of a sudden we just like, let's just ask these state police that are there. And the guy's like, let's go all the way around. And, or he says, go all the way around and you'll see a bunch of cops there. And that's the entrance. So we go, we drive in. The cop's like, oh, what are you guys here for? And we're like, oh, we're media. And he's like, you got press passes? And like, yeah, we got these because we're part of, this press gallery in Canada. I know in the US they do it by like some places do it by states or they do like the police department. Isn't that how they do it in New York? The police departments issue press passes.
I don't know who issues them in New York. That'd be a question for maybe like Elad or.
That's what I'm pretty sure. I was going to say that's where I saw it on. I think in some jurisdictions the police force is what gives it the press credentials. So anyways, in Canada there isn't really like real press credentials. You can just be part of a press gallery. There's only a couple of them. They tried to keep the main one tries to keep people like us out. So we were just like, too bad. We created an independent press gallery. A bunch of different places created their own press gallery. It's pretty sweet. So that got us in. And he's like, where are you guys coming from? And we're like, from Canada. He's like, Canada? Well, that's pretty strange. Go on in. So it's like these foreign guys with a press pass you don't recognize, just from Canada, send them right on in to the presidential, to the press gallery. But that wasn't it. So we go in, and we don't have to wait in line with the commoners. We go to the media table, but they're like, you guys got to wait for an hour and a half. I'm like, that sucks. But we see a bunch of people with equipment lining up their equipment against the fence line. And for my days in the military, I know that's when you want to have dogs or somebody search the stuff. So we do that, and they're about to put it, they've set it all down, and they have a dog come by and sniff everything, and they're about to put us through. And then some guy who works for the Secret Service is just like, who are you guys? And we're just like, oh, we're press. And he's like, no, who are you guys? And it turns out we were almost getting in with Trump's actual team, their actual press team that films their rallies for them. And so, like, obviously, a couple of these cops got in shit for just not checking who we were. So, because we almost got in with the Trump team, it was weird. So we had to wait like another 45 minutes to get in with the rest of the press. We had no idea, like, we weren't trying to sneak in or anything because we didn't want to get kicked out. So like another 45 minutes waiting this blistering cold, and we get in, and then once you walk past the security gate, they just had a bunch of boxes lined up with merch in them. And surprisingly enough, you would think that people were just going insane grabbing them, but it was surprisingly orderly. And we wanted to grab more. I just ended up grabbing a hat that's behind me. It's probably too high up to see.
Wait, you got the eagle, or did you?
Yeah. I can just grab it, but I tucked it in so nicely that I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I would have grabbed more, but we had press passes on, so we're just like, that probably wouldn't look good. Yeah, and then from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. is when we had to wait for Trump. They had like one heater there.
So it was supposed to start at 6 and you got there at 1?
Yeah, it sucked waiting that long.
Wow.
I think it was supposed to start at 5. It was supposed to be 5 to 6, but he was late by like an hour. So Mike Pence came out and gave like a 45-minute speech. I don't know how he did it, but he just started on one thing and touched on everything because he's probably done this so many times. But it was really good. We got to stand on the actual like press thing. And all the other press were wearing masks, and they're giving us dirty looks. It was pretty funny. And then I did some streeters with Trump fans, like just random interviews, and they were also excited. My brother texts me when the video goes up. He's like, "How come none of those people have real opinions? They're all so stupid." And I was like, they had like the reasons why they don't want to vote for Biden. But my brother is just this type of guy who he doesn't trust any politician, no matter what. He doesn't trust any of them. He's like, I don't want to say an anarchist because he believes in working and everything, but he's let's call it an off the grid kind of guy. He moved out to the East Coast on his own land, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. He doesn't believe the process it helps at all.
I mean, the way we're going, at least here in America, the way we're going, it kind of makes sense. I'd be, I can't tell you I know anything about Canadian politics outside of, Trudeau. I don't know, I don't know what the hell's going on up there. Was it, was it Rob Ford? Is that?
Rob Ford was the one who smoked crack, and he's dead now.
Okay, because
he was great though.
He was he was the Canadian Marion Barry, right? Like I don't know
the mayor.
Barry.
No, I don't know who that is.
Well, he was the mayor. Marion Barry was the mayor of Washington, D.C., like when I was a kid.
Okay.
Of course, I'm not from D.C., but he got caught smoking crack as well in Washington.
Okay. Rob Ford was the mayor of Toronto, and he got caught smoking crack. He was hilarious. Like, poor guy. And the media just attacked him all the time. But now his younger brother, is the premier, the governor of Ontario, my province, and I think he's lost a lot of favor in the fact that like how soft he's been about COVID and everything. I think he's like the press loving him because he's gone like really liberal. He's signing checks to everybody, giving everybody he refused to pay before COVID. He's giving them all money now, so the media gives him all these softball questions, and anytime he gets a question he doesn't like, he's like, well, I can't answer that. Let's bring up the doctors. So let's just blame the doctors. It's not my fault, you guys. So I think he's losing a lot of conservative votes. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Now, those conservatives, they're not going to start voting for like left-wing people, right?
No, and that's the same thing. Is the left-wing voters aren't going to vote for him come election time. They're just going to be like, screw you. Like we still don't like you. So that's why it's a stupid mistake. There's so many parties in Canada. We have our own Green Party. We have the Liberal Party, which is Justin Trudeau's party. We have the Conservatives, which are different federally than they are from each different province. Like Doug Ford's the Progressive Conservatives, and then the federal party is just the Conservatives. Then there's the NDP, which is the New Democratic Party, and that's basically if AOC and the Squad and Bernie had their own party.
Ooh.
And they're basically the same as the Green Party here. They're both the Green Party and the New Democrats are just like super far left. Everything the UN says is amazing, and they can't win. They can't win anything because they're like the only people who want them are like young girls with blue hair and stuff like that.
Yeah, little commies and stuff. Wait, so did you say that you had like that you kind of got jammed up when you were going back into Canada from Michigan, or?
Yeah, so they didn't want us. Like, the thing is that they don't tell you anything when you go into the U.S. Like, they called their superiors to see if we were allowed in, and then they're just like, the guy was like shooting the shit with us. He's like, yeah, it's out of my hand. You don't have to convince me at all. And then on the way back, they're just like, yeah, that doesn't exist. Sorry. Like, that exemption doesn't exist. So I can't really get into it. I've probably already said too much, but let's just say in like 8 days, I can talk about it more.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that then. Jesus. It doesn't sound ideal. Really quick though, before I forget, I wanted to bring up, these are actually like notes. I have just like a little bit of notes.
Oh, wow.
Well, no, this was like I was going to make like a YouTube video and I just kind of got sidetracked. I'm in this brand new place. I barely have any furniture. I spent the last week in Wisconsin, so now I have to like restart everything. But before this, I actually wrote this down before Election Day, because to me, it seemed like Joe Biden had almost strategically thrown away Florida and Pennsylvania, right? All his, all the Latinx, is it Latinx or Latinx or whatever?
I don't know.
The Hispanic, Cuban, Latino, Dominican. I don't know. Do they have Dominican? Whatever. The like Latino community in the Florida area had completely written off Joe Biden because they see him basically as a commie. So Florida, he lost Florida months ago, right? But then when he did his whole fracking thing and Trump called him out on fracking, I was under the impression that was it. That was it for Pennsylvania as well. Yeah. And so in my head, I'm thinking that Joe Biden, for better or for worse, is so stupid that he lost two big states like Florida and Pennsylvania before Election Day even came. And then somehow he managed to win Pennsylvania. And that just doesn't add up to me.
Well, when he won Michigan and Wisconsin, I was like, that doesn't really matter, because if Trump wins Nevada or Arizona, then he wins, because the rest are in the bag. Like, there was 15% left in, I think, all of them, 15 or 10. I don't remember which one was which, but he had a huge lead in South Carolina, less huge of a lead in Georgia, and he had a huge lead in Pennsylvania. And so, like, in any other race, they would have just called that. And nobody I knew was focusing on those three states because they were all so far gone. So you were focusing on Arizona and Nevada. And I was holding out hope for Nevada. And then Eric Trump starts talking about Arizona. They're going to win it. And then all of a sudden, these races start getting tighter and tighter overnight. And I think I said the other day, watch by Trump's up by like 4,000 in Georgia. By the morning, he will no longer have it. And that's exactly what happened. And then little did I know he would no longer have Pennsylvania in the morning. So they can't call any of them. I don't think, I'll look it up right now, I don't think they've called Alaska for him either.
And we know, though, that the Democrats, is it a surprise to anyone that the Democrats are cheating? I mean, they cheated Bernie Sanders out of a nomination twice, right? Like,
that's the thing. They don't even, like, Kamala Harris got like no votes in the primaries.
She didn't even make it to Iowa. She didn't even make it to the Iowa caucus. She sat out a debate that she qualified for because she knew she didn't even have a chance. So the Democratic voters didn't even want her, right? Like, they didn't even want her. But now, because people are so brainwashed by the media, they're dancing in the streets. Like, what are these people dancing for? Honestly, like,
just because they hate Trump, because Orange Man bad is why.
Oh,
doesn't matter, and none of the facts or anything matters. Like, I had this conversation with a girl. Shout out to, I won't say her name because She'll be embarrassed. But she just posted this thing that says, "Oh, now that Biden's won, I don't care if you're from Canada or the U.S. If you like Trump, you're a trash human being." And I'm just like, I can't follow you. Like, if you like, I can't be seen following people who just call everyone like garbage and shit like that. Like, I'm not sensitive like that much, but like, first of all, I don't like, I'm not following you for your opinions. I just know you. And, but like, I can't like, all I see is like somebody like I'm already on a news channel where people try to like make stuff up about us all the time. I can't have like, oh, Andrew follows this girl who calls people trash and pieces of shit. So like I'm just like, why are you even saying this? And then so I'm questioning her on it. And then she's just like, oh, my biggest problem with Trump is actually that health insurance companies are making it so that the pill and birth control is not covered. And I'm like, so he's a piece of shit and everyone who follows him is a garbage human being. But your biggest problem with him is that insurance companies aren't going to cover birth control anymore. Like, where does that connect happen? And like, that's how I know, like, you don't actually know what you're talking about. And she tried to tell me that Trump's against gay marriage. It's 2020. I can't believe he's against gay marriage. It's like, no, Biden's the one who was against gay marriage. And Trump was the first person to come into office, campaign supporting it. So it's like, these are the people that are believing this stuff. And I don't remember what my original point was.
Well, it's the low information voter. I was having a conversation with somebody just earlier today, and just in a text message, and she's like, well, I just can't believe that people, and this is a Trump supporter, a Trump supporting woman, saying like, well, I just can't believe how people would support Joe Biden and, you know, like all the crooked, corrupt things that he's done. I'm like, you're already giving them too much credit because they are not looking at the facts and saying, I don't care about that. They are actively ignoring things, like being willfully ignorant, right? Like, so
well, if everything tells you one thing, like if you don't watch any news or pay attention to any politics, and you don't notice this until you no longer watch it, or like you were on the other side, so to speak. It's just a different reality. It's just like, oh, everybody says that. Like, that's the popular opinion. That's what the truth is. And they can present it from the other side. I think that was the point was, no, I forget again.
It's just, it's all
who's voting for Biden, essentially. So
yeah,
So right now, Arizona's still not called. This according to New York Times, everybody. 98% with Biden ahead by 17,000. Alaska still not called, and Trump has 63% of the vote, 108 to 56. Georgia and North Carolina still not called.
Does it tell you how many electoral votes Alaska holds?
Yeah, 3. So if Pennsylvania gets overturned, which is 20, Biden goes down to 259 and Trump goes up to 234. And then North Carolina still not called with Trump winning by, he's got 42. My math skills, my girlfriend was telling me my math skills are amazing because I was subtracting numbers on Mario Kart. 75,000 votes he's ahead of North Carolina, and Georgia, Biden's ahead by less, or like 10,300 votes, and that's 98% reported as well. And like I knew that, like I started guessing based on how many days they had left to count, like which ones would fall. Like Pennsylvania was supposed to be counted by Friday. So I was like, well, they're going to call that, they're going to cheat in that one first. And then North Carolina is supposed to be November 12th. So they'll by the 12th, it'll turn out. But then if they've already gotten away with taking Pennsylvania, they don't need to cheat for anything else. So that was a smart strategy, I suppose.
But I mean, some of these, there's just, I mean, okay, obviously I don't have the proof, right? But I mean, we're talking about
it's just not believable.
It's not believable. It's just not believable. And we know that these people have a history of cheating. Like I said, they cheated Bernie twice. They locked Tulsi Gabbard out of the establishment. They whatever they did with, if we recall, Mayor Pete, and because I'll be honest with you, early on when they had 20-something clowns up there talking about abortions for transgender people or whatever it is they do, I thought I had my smart money on Amy Klobuchar, which I know seems a little bit crazy,
No, a
but she
lot of
was
people did.
exactly. So okay,
She
when
seemed
it's
more sane at the time,
she
even if
seemed
she.
more sane. Exactly, sane for a Democrat, right? And so when the clock is really ticking, time's winding down, and now Mayor Pete drops out, Buttigieg he drops out, and Klobuchar drops out, and it's like, why would you do that? I mean, obviously Biden has the name recognition, but the man, even at that point, couldn't even put together a complete sentence.
Well,
Now,
it's kind of obvious that he's the one who they can just push through. Like he's part of their establishment, quite
exactly,
obviously.
it's painfully obvious. It's painfully obvious. And like I said, Pelosi, for months saying, well, Trump's not gonna accept the results, and no matter, she her little monkey paw thing, and like her little she like shakes, and she's like, well, Joe Biden will be elected one way or another. It's like they
Yeah.
keep saying the quiet part out loud, and then you realize that's why Joe Biden didn't have to campaign. Of course, they will tell you it was COVID, which to me is just another. I mean, COVID was obviously an excuse, right, to gain complete control, complete power grab. So now you can gain complete control through fear. You can tell people that they have to vote by mail, which you can now manipulate crazily, and you can usher in these socialist policies on top of all that, right? So you could just say, well, you can't go to work, but don't worry, just we're gonna kick you a couple pennies. You know what I mean? Obviously, it was just the virus was such like a way to kill, four birds with one stone as far as the Democrats were concerned. It's absolutely insane, and it drives me literally insane because I made a YouTube video on after California shut down one day before New York. I believe it was either the 20th of March or the 21st of March. And it was so painfully obvious for me. I'm like, no way. This was you mean to tell me that the people that literally scratched at the Supreme Court door when Kavanaugh was being confirmed, the same people that spent 3 years talking about Russia, dropped Russia like a hot potato and pivoted to Ukraine, now all of a sudden are telling you that you can't go to work because of a virus when the economy is the best it's ever been since the 40s or whatever it is. It was so painfully obvious that was a way to destroy Trump's crowning achievement, which was the economy, and usher in their socialist policies by saying, no, work is not safe. Just pay it, we're going to print more money and give it to, you know what I mean? It was just such a mess. And at that point, I didn't think it was going to drag on that long. In March, I didn't think that they were going to demand mail-in voting because of a virus. I just thought that they wanted to do socialism. But then obviously had a three-prong approach or three causes or three solutions or three things that it did for them. And it's just so bizarre that people are still buying into this. Of course, now that we're seeing all the celebrations in the street, are they still going to be talking about super spreader events? Are they still going to be talking about social distancing?
Of course not.
Or is that going to come back after the courts decide what really happened and the AP doesn't know what's going on? And then they're going to bring it back then?
Well, there's I forget what the one reporter's name is, but he has in the same day, he has a big party. It says big party at the White House going on right now. And then later in the day, college football game. This is troubling considering COVID still like numbers are on the rise. It's like literally in the same day. This guy can't show, like he can't be reasonable about this. That's the problem. And all the journalists who are just tweeting the same thing. Oh, now that Trump's president or now that Biden's president, and they're writing all these articles. Kamala Harris, the first somehow black but also Indian.
Yeah.
And like race-based accomplishments is my point there that don't mean anything. And they're just carrying on, like we were saying earlier, they're just carrying on as if everything, like this is the new reality. And that's the thing about the people who are accepting this, because when the only politics you're exposed to are through Snapchat, Vox, late night talk shows, The View, and crap like that, they just go on with this reality. And unless you're into politics, I guess you don't see it. I don't know. I was watching Shank, the Young Turks on night, and he was just talking about how the Democrats have lost, and he's like he's right and he's wrong. He starts off by saying how much they suck and how they don't have any real policies and how they don't talk to, like, they don't care about their base at all. And with that, he's right. But on the other hand, his ideas are terrible because he wants them to do like super, super progressive ideas. And the Young Turks were all just talking, just like in 2016, about how it's over and how they should have easily won, but they can't. And then by the next morning, Trump's lost. Like,
yeah,
and
it's crazy.
It's so stupid.
So okay, one thing that Biden has been talking about is a national mask mandate. And he carries his little mask like a little blankie, like, like this is my, he walks onto stage wearing it and then takes out. It's like the virtue signaling is through the roof. But now that we see people partying in the street, literally sharing champagne, having dance parties, Cupid shuffle, all this stuff, can he really, if he actually won, can he really come out and get inaugurated in January and talk about a mask mandate after all of his supporters were out partying in the street? Is that actually possible? I mean,
yes.
Who are we kidding
Yes, it
here?
is. People will still follow it. People will still say like how horrible it is, and they'll say this is more important, just like they said with the BLM protest. They'll still do it, and the people who don't really believe in it, who don't care either way, will just not put up a fight. Oh, it's just a mask. They see no nefariousness behind it. They see no progression of like a slippery slope. It's just wear your mask, bro. What's the big deal? And then that's like 2 steps away from the guy wearing his mask in his car while he drives alone. Or I see people on their bikes, riding a bike with the mask on, like you're dodging COVID.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that would trigger me the most in New York City, because I'm thinking, I see it all the time in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn, and I'm thinking, okay, if you're riding a bike 10 or 15 miles, if you're really riding a bike pretty fast down the road with a mask on, why are you wearing the mask? Is it because you are sick and you don't want to infect somebody walking down the sidewalk? Or is it because you are that afraid of somebody on the sidewalk might cough in your direction as you're riding a bike? Like, what?
None of it makes sense. A great fear.
Especially in New York. And I said this a long time ago when I first got furloughed and I was just exploring parts of New York City that I had never been to. I literally was just getting on the train and taking it to the last stop. And I end up walking across the Queens Bridge. I was in Queens walking back into Manhattan, and it was actually a really nice day. And I see people riding their bike on the Queens Bridge, and I'm like, do these people really think that they are more likely to catch or give somebody the virus while they're riding 15 miles per hour on a bike? Or are you more likely to hit a big-time New York City pothole and go flying over the handlebars and bust your skull open because you're wearing a mask and not a helmet?
Helmets while we're driving from now on, I think, is what you're advocating for right now.
Exactly. You got to
bulletproof vests at all times.
This is so bizarre. The fear that they've created. They told everybody, oh, you gotta. I mean, if you remember this, it was what, a week or so ago, because they've been telling, oh, you gotta vote by mail. Everybody's gonna vote by mail. We're just gonna blanket the whole country with mail-in ballots. But then when it came crunch time, they said, oh, well, no, just social distance and wear your mask. You gotta vote in person. It's
exactly.
Who just walks around?
I don't understand.
Believing.
I don't understand what I don't think people from other countries understand either, but I don't understand the resistance to voting in person with an ID in the US. Like, I don't think, like, the idea that that's voter suppression is insanity.
No, well, it's bizarre. I mean, right? You can't go into a rated R movie. You can't go.
Does it have to do with, like, is it like a constitution thing where, like, you can't tell me I can't vote? Just like
no, I think no, it's just pure virtue. It's just pure virtue signaling. It's just it's it's a it's something that they can say is racist. That's it.
Of course.
So you could say, well, just because this man just hopped over a 50-foot fence on the border of San Diego doesn't mean he shouldn't be able to vote, right? Like, well, yeah, kind of. That's exactly what that means, right? Like,
well, here
and,
you get
and the same thing in New York. They get driver's licenses, and look, I'm from California. I'm used to, like, when I was young, I didn't realize, that the guy, at the risk of sounding insensitive, I didn't realize that the 10 or 15 guys hanging out outside the Home Depot were illegal immigrants. I didn't understand that when I was a kid, and now it all kind of falls into place. And no, it doesn't make sense at all. It's just a way to say something's racist. That's it.
I think you have to, like, to push for mail-in voting, you have to just, like, want. Like, why would you want mail-in voting if you're not certain? Maybe it's because they think, like, younger kids would vote if it was just easier. And, like, it's not like it's hard to go in and vote in person. But, like, I'm struggling to come up with an excuse for why you would want mail-in voting, because it's so easy to manipulate, to cheat with it. Yeah. So here, what they do is they send you a thing, and they send you your voter registration in the mail, assuming they send it to wherever your driver's license is. Essentially, that's what I gather, and you have to bring that with you to vote, and your photo ID, a government, like, we have health cards here. Don't get angry. Either that or your driver's license. And if you just move somewhere and you don't have an updated driver's license, you can bring a bill with your name and your address on it or something. And then you have to mark. They give you one of those tiny little pencils, like in grade school, and you got to color it in inside the cardboard that they give you. You color it in, and nobody's ever had a problem with it. It's election day. You go, a local school will have it. A local old folks home will have polls. They're everywhere, and I've never heard a single person complain that was too difficult. So
let me ask you this though: what's the virus situation looking like where you're at? You say you're 30 minutes outside of Toronto. I mean, they're still crazy about the mask? You got to wear it while you're at the gym, like?
So they tried to do it by, like, jurisdiction, but they don't say, like, what the determining factors are. They just say this area is on the rise, therefore we have to. They've done it in, like, the stages, like what do they call them? It's not like colors. It's like, stage 2.
Yeah.
Like right now, stage 3 is almost everything's open, but you have to wear a mask in, like, stupid situations, like unless you're eating, or, like, not even unless you're eating. It's unless you've sat down. So you go into a restaurant, wear a mask. Once you sit down, you can now take off your mask. At the gym, you have to wear a mask when you go in the door, and you're supposed to wear it between machines, like when you're walking between machines. But when I get there, I just wear it as soon as I get past, like, the key scan thing. I just take it off, and nobody seems to care. And when you take it off, when you're not wearing one at the gym, for anyone watching, other people feel inspired by you and stop wearing a mask. Some people just look at you because they think you're crazy. He's playing with death right now. But I've seen people literally, like, look at me confused. They're wearing a mask while they're working out, and then, like, 5 minutes later, they're not wearing it the rest of the time. And I was like, really inspired you.
I've inspired people on Patreon too. Back when I was in New York, because that was one thing that on principle I just was not going to do. They were not going to tell me I had to wear a mask on the train. And I get it, like, well, because I didn't buy, I could see it dude, it was months into this thing before they started saying you got to wear a mask everywhere.
Yeah.
And so
it would have made more sense at the beginning to do all this stuff.
Exactly. So just on principle, and I would walk past cops. I was not wearing it. Like, I would put it on my chin to go into the grocery store and stuff, but I was not wearing it on the train. And I would see people, I would make, catch eye contact with, like, an older lady, not like an old lady, but maybe 40 or 50-ish, lady.
That's
like
prime woke age right now. 40 to 50-year-old women are very woke right now.
she's like reading her book. And I just, I'm like, I got my headphones in. I'm like probably rapping some Kanye or something in my head. And I look up, look out the window, take a sip of my water, and I see the lady, and she sees me. She goes back down to her book, and then she takes it off. Like, you know what I mean? It's like she was like minorly inspired by the fact that I wasn't wearing it. And I don't know what's going to happen to New York, man. It does feel really good to be out of there. Because here in South Dakota, don't worry about it. You see very few people wearing a mask. Very few. I mean, I'd say like 3 out of 10 people are wearing a mask, right? It's not mandatory. There's no mandates. There's a couple signs you see some signs that say, oh, CDC recommends you wear a mask. Of course, I don't trust the CDC. And some signs will say, if it'd be nice, it'd be, there's nothing forceful about it. But then even going to, because I've already, just living here for not even a month, I've already gotten used to that. I don't have one in my pocket. I don't carry it. I used to keep one in my pocket in New York just for like emergency, if I just had to go into like a Walgreens or something, just in case. But here I don't have it. I don't carry it. I don't even think about the mask. But then when I was in Wisconsin, I realized that I'm not in South Dakota anymore. And the guy at one of the hotels I was at, I mean, I was doing these nasty little Priceline deals where you pay, however many dollars, and they'll tell you where the hotel is after you pay the bargain rate. And this guy, it was like something out of a cartoon. Keep in mind, he's behind plexiglass. They have this brand new.
It saves you, the plexiglass.
But it was like industrial. So they had these 2x4s up where it used to clearly just be an over the desk, an over the counter transaction. Now they put these 2x4s up, and there's plexiglass on the 2x4s. So now he's in a nice little cube. And this guy looked like something out of a cartoon when I came in. Because it was only supposed to be a 2-day trip. So I have a little bag and a bottle of water. And he, behind the plexiglass, like jumps back like, sir. And I'm like, all right, calm down. He's like, you have to wear a mask. I'm like, dude, literally you're behind all this plexiglass where there's like a little slot to slide an ID under. And he's like, you have to wear a mask. You have to wear a mask. I'm like, okay, like, do you have one? I don't have one. If you have one for me, I'll gladly put it on. He's like, hold on, stay there. And he like runs around and brings me a mask in a paper towel. So he's holding the mask.
I was going to say,
yeah.
Now you're both dead if he hands you that.
It's like, but then you go, it's become so obvious to me that none of it's actually that dire, because if it were, it would be the same everywhere. So I could drive 1 hour from Madison to Wisconsin Dells, and it's completely different. And I could drive from here in Sioux Falls, 45 minutes into Minnesota, and then now I have to put it on again. Like
either that, or we'd have to wear hazmat suits everywhere. Because I was in the Army when they tear gas you. You're not just wearing a mask. You're not just wearing an N95 and goggles.
Yeah, the N95 is the one that looks like the coffee filter to me. It's like the little pointy one, right? Yeah.
A couple of my coworkers, they don't wear masks on like the subway and stuff here, and they say like once a week somebody tries to give them shit for it. And it's like,
they give them like a ticket, or just like a civilian.
It's just a civilian, yeah. And there's like one of them's a girl, and she's just like, congratulations for yelling at a small girl. And the other guy's really laid back, so I imagine he just doesn't say anything. My thing, if anyone asks me, which is very rare, it must be like the type of personality or the look on my face, something. I've been to Walmart, and me and another person are the only ones there not wearing a mask. Nobody says anything. One woman said once that we weren't going the correct line. We weren't following the lines in the aisle. You're going the wrong way. The arrows actually point the other way. I was like, oh. But my line is state your science. It's my state your science as to why I'm harming you right now. But nobody ever asks me.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that for sure. I mean, of course, it's not going to happen to me here. Nobody ever said anything to me in New York, though. Like,
because you're black.
Yeah, well, could be.
Cannot question.
One little old lady. I was on the J train, and she was ironically, or maybe ironic is not the term for it, but for better or for worse, she was reading the New York Times, which I just thought was kind of funny because it's obviously fake news. And she was nice about it. I'm sure she meant well. She wasn't malicious. She was just like, sir, where's your mask? And I just
Sir, did you forget that you weren't wearing one?
Yeah, and I just, because when you're walking around New York, you have to brush off a bum every 10 feet. And so I just kind of like, no, not today.
So I spat on her. Get away from me, bitch.
But that's the only time anybody's ever said anything to me about it in New York outside of the grocery store. That's the only time. So
at this point in 2020, when everything's about race, if I were you, I'd just be calling every single thing racist. Whenever something doesn't go my way, I'd just be like, no discount, racist.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't fix my car in 2 hours so I could still get to the rally. Racist.
That's right. You didn't want me to go to that rally because I'm black.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we should wrap up.
Wrap it up. Yeah. We inside the hour or so, just about.
Or it's somewhere. I don't know.
Well,
get a flag on your wall. Get something on your wall. Get something confusing, like a mirror behind you or something.
Well, what I really want to do is get because if you'll notice my old YouTube videos, I have the cityscape.
Yeah, I like that stuff.
I just want to do. I'm just gonna go with the countryside now that I'm in the countryside.
Mount Rushmore, maybe.
Maybe some Rushmore. I might do Rushmore, which is absolutely epic in person. I don't know if you've ever been. But
no, I haven't. That's pretty sweet. Dude, Mount Cushmore.
Cushmore.
Get all the most famous weed smokers in the background.
Snoop Dogg and like Wiz Khalifa.
Willie Nelson, I think, would have to be on there.
Willie Nelson.
I think you have to put Burner on there now. Maybe not 10 years ago.
Wow. It's crazy how big Burner is because that's very Bay Area. That's super Bay
I've seen him. I saw him in Toronto.
Performing?
Yeah, sweet.
Pre-COVID, right? Obviously.
Pre-COVID, yes. With all the weed smoke in the air. It was not healthy.
Hopefully we could get back to some concerts. We'll go see some movies. Go to a bar. Go to a dive bar. I used to DJ. You can't see, but I have like my DJ equipment right here on the desk. Like you can't even. Like we were doing DJ gigs like twice a month in Brooklyn, and then they just nipped it in the bud. And I don't think that stuff's ever coming back. So maybe we could talk about New York in more detail on the.
Oh, for sure. I have many questions.
Yeah, because that place is falling apart, and if you get me started, I could go for hours on.
They'll mostly be based around my perceptions of New York from Ninja Turtles 1, Seinfeld, and Batman, because I'll just assume Gotham City's at play there.
Seinfeld is my favorite. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot, dude. Keep me posted, and we'll up the production value here shortly.
Very cool. All right, take it easy, man.
Later.